everybody, once again to SoCo Chat, a podcast where we discuss all things concerning the county of Sonoma and this beautiful corner of California. Once again, I'm your host, Paul Gullickson, communications manager for the county of Sonoma. And today we have the great honor to have with us Supervisor Susan Gorin, who represents District 1 on the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors. For those who don't know, her district essentially stretches from the city of Sonoma through Sonoma Valley, all the way up to eastern Santa Rosa, including Bennett Valley and Rincon Valley. I think that about covers it. So we have a lot to discuss today. But before we do, we want to give you the answer to one of our latest trivia questions in honor of the beginning of baseball season. Our question was, what is the name of the last Sonoma County student who was drafted in the first round of the Major League Baseball draft? The answer is Spencer Torkelson, who was born in Petaluma and graduated from Casa Grande High School and was the first overall pick in the 2020 Major League Baseball draft. And he's now starting first base for the Detroit Tigers. Now, in honor of Supervisor Gorin, I would also like to note that just a year earlier in 2019, someone from her district was also picked in the first round, and that person was Andrew Vaughn, who is a graduate of Maria Carrillo High School, who now plays for the Chicago White Sox. So you're well represented in this trivia quiz this week. Anyway, enough questions about baseball. We've got that out of our system. Stay tuned, and until after today's segment, we'll give you our next trivia question. But for now, let's welcome Supervisor Gorin. Susan, thank you for being here.
Paul, it's such a pleasure to be here, and I've admired your work over a number of years, and here you are working with us, working at the county. Who
It's
knew?
fun. I know. It's fun. Well, you and I have known each other a long time, and I just so appreciate our friendships and our working together over the years, and now it's my honor to be here. So let's talk about some of the things that are going on for you and the district and the county. First, let's start with Los Guilicos Village, right? That's a big issue going on right now. And just to remind our listeners, Los Guilicos Village is operated by the nonprofit St. Vincent de Paul. It's a series of mini apartments, if you will, that are set up to house some of our homeless people. We've had it there for several years now. Tell us what's going on out there.
Well, I think it's rather interesting to represent Sonoma Valley and have decisions made by the board and the county that has potentially an adverse effect on everyone living in Sonoma Valley. And most people know that I actually live in that active adult community of Oakmont, and we can talk about fires and a little bit.
We will be. Yeah.
We will be. But I think as I wake up each morning, depending on the clouds and the fog, that is my front door vista. I see Los Guilicos and reflect on the long history of Los Guilicos over the years and as it has evolved. Certainly today it houses many, many vulnerable residents. Our juvenile hall is there, the Valley of the Moon Children's Shelter, soon to be operating a behavioral health treatment center at the Valley of the Moon Children's Center, a locked psychiatric facility for adults. We have offices for court-appointed special advocates and the grand jury.
Right.
And we now have a resident camp operated by CAL FIRE on the campus.
Which is a great addition.
Which is a great addition right at the base of the hill.
Right.
But several years ago, more years ago than I like to think about, the board made the decision we are struggling with folks on Redota Trail. Where can we place them? Where can we build housing for them? Yeah. And who knew that I was at a CSAC, a California State Association of Counties, and I saw this pallet shelter, and I said, this might be a good solution to bring back to Sonoma County. Well, apparently it was, but the irony is, against my vehement objections, they were built and placed on Los Guilicos. So we do call it LG Village for short, and it is operated beautifully by St. Vincent de Paul. in close communication with a committee on Oakmont to resolve any issues, and there
Yeah.
have been some over the
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
So I can't complain about how well it has blended in there, and the number of folks who've lived there and then moved after some time to permanent supportive housing. But I'm frequently reminded by the neighbors surrounding it. We have St. Francis Winery. We have 5,000 people living in
Yeah.
Oakmont, many of whom are bedbound and vulnerable and physically challenged. And I frequently have communications with those folks in Sonoma Valley concerned about the operation of a homeless service center so far removed away from services.
Yeah.
And it is 30 minutes away, as I know too well, to get to Santa Rosa. It's 30 minutes away to get to the city of Sonoma, to access groceries, to access social services, although there are some social services provided by the county on the site.
On the side. Yeah.
It is on a bus line, but it is very expensive to operate there because of the distance away from services and the fact that it is not safe for anybody to walk anywhere from the village. They can take a bus, but I wouldn't advise riding a bicycle because we have not constructed the multi-use trail that I'm working on. We can talk about
That's
that in the
another
future.
issue. That's another one of your legacy.
So and I am, I'm pleased the way things have evolved, but I
Mhm.
am increasingly concerned because now we have invested quite a bit of money into remodeling the former juvenile hall
Yeah.
to build 130 different dorm spaces for our most vulnerable residents, with some staff members, of course. It may operate a little differently than St. Vincent de Paul, but the sheer number of additional folks on that campus has increasingly been alarming to me because they are all in restricted or limited restrictions facilities like our youth at the juvenile hall for
Yeah.
sure, and absolutely dependent on transportation in case of emergencies.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to be clear, so we're going to be transitioning the people. The plan is to transition the people from these mini apartments, the pallets, to the converted dorms, right?
I was originally enthusiastic about that because I'd been talking to various county departments. What are we going to do with the many buildings on that campus
Right.
that are shuttered, including the juvenile hall? And I've toured the juvenile hall, been trying to figure out what we could do with that. So I'm pleased that we have found the money to rehabilitate
Uh-huh.
2 of the wings.
Hmm.
It's potentially a good use. But I stood in front of Oakmont and explained along with Tina Rivera and Dave Kiff that this was the way we're moving forward, doubling the size of our homeless folks. And while we were intending to diversify services and place a service center on the county campus. And I feel that I misled Oakmont by
Mm.
giving that insurance.
Mm.
I was misled by receiving that insurance
Yeah.
and having the board approve that, and then it has not come to pass.
Yeah.
So we're in the process of now concentrating folks from the Rise and Shine Village, possibly in Sebastopol, 20 plus miles away. The folks in the tent encampments at the county campus absolutely need to get out of
Right.
of the
Yeah. That they
tents
have.
for
We have to
sure.
close that one. Yeah.
From Redota Trail, West County, to the farthest reach in Santa Rosa at Los Guilicos. And maybe eventually we will move the folks from LG Village into the dorms.
Yeah.
That is what they told me initially would happen, that they are fragile, falling apart, and that they need to move the folks out of the pallet shelter homes into the dorms. I don't know when that's going to happen. It looks like we are focusing on moving other folks much further away into the dorms. There's been no discussion about or initiative about outreaching to any of the homeless service providers in Sonoma Valley, in the
Yeah.
city of Sonoma. Where do they fit in?
Yeah.
And And I'm waiting and wondering why we are making the decisions that we're
Yeah.
making.
Well, there's still a lot to be decided there. Well, let's talk about wildfire safety because it's a beautiful spot out there. There's even some concerts out there in the summertime, which we've enjoyed. But it is in the shadow of the scars of the glass fire, and it just it illustrates the fire danger that we've all experienced. You know that firsthand. You lost your home in the Tubbs fire, the Nuns fire. And so, tell us about the concerns that what assurances that we can give people that are housed out there in Oakmont and elsewhere that these large communities surround the campus, that we have evacuation routes in mind for how they can get out in the time of emergency like that.
I wish I had confidence to give to the community,
Yeah.
and I don't at this point. It's been not just the glass fire, but certainly the 2017 fires that wrapped around and took my house and many more. And two fires have entered or run across that campus and destroyed $1 million plus in infrastructure, including 6 of the pallet shelter homes. So clearly the folks there are vulnerable and remain vulnerable. And thank you, Paul, for writing your book. And I have to acknowledge that I had a hand in the approval process of Verena and Villa Capri.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned so much from your book. It's not just the planning mistakes that may have been made for those facilities, but it's the operational mistakes and the overconfidence of people being assured that they would be safe in case of emergency when there had been no training. The training manuals were locked. There were no vehicles on the site, or the keys were locked.
Yeah.
We do not have evacuation vehicles on the site.
Yeah.
As I was alerted early on about the glass fire, about ready to sweep up and down that hill rapidly, we were prepared in Oakmont, but I also looked at the evacuation that was conducted by the Sheriff's Office and the Department of Emergency Management. And those folks across the street were evacuated a half an hour, 45 minutes to an hour earlier than Oakmont.
Mm.
So they were safe.
Yeah.
But I've heard anecdotally that it was only by the suggestion of a community member that St. Vincent de Paul actually had a van to help evacuate some of those residents and was able to somehow grab a county van to evacuate the residents. It would have been a very different scenario had he not had the foresight and community not had the foresight to do exactly that.
Yeah.
So
well, we still have a lot to learn about, and we can learn from our past mistakes.
I was sitting in a traffic queue, hour and a half long, of cars trying to emerge from Oakmont. It took them 2+ hours to evacuate from the 2 entrances of Oakmont. The Calistoga Road was closed down at that point, so all cars were exiting south, bumper-to-bumper traffic through Oakmont. And the last cars were leaving Oakmont as the first homes were burning in the glass fire.
That's crazy.
That is too close for comfort.
Yeah.
And since that time, we have more vulnerable individuals on that campus. Guilicos Village is in process just north. And of course, we have a lot of development potentially in the approval process at the Sonoma Developmental Center and the Hanna Center.
Yeah.
So you ask me if I have confidence. I do not.
It's obviously a big concern for you and for the people who live out there. Let's look at. We just put out a story yesterday about how Permit Sonoma is opening up the chipper program early this year, just so people can get a jump on the fire season. It's a great program, allowing people to get rid of some of that debris around their houses and have it turned into for soil for their property. Are there other programs you want to make sure people know about, or anything that people can be doing to prepare?
Well, I think there are many programs that people should avail themselves. The Fire Safe Sonoma publishes and has on their website information about defensible space around your homes.
Yeah.
And I reported to Oakmont that I really blame the junipers that were the source of ignition around my house. And Oakmont started to junk the junipers.
Junk the junipers.
Nice alliteration. And those junipers I was concerned about, oh, they're gone.
Good.
They were toasted. But but Oakmont has become a fire-wise community with inspections. And even with my newly constructed home 30 feet down the hill, they said, you have a bush growing into a tree. You need to limb up and you need to trim down, which I have done and will continue to do. So I'm very aware of how we move forward with defensible space. It is so hard to retrofit and think differently
Yep.
about a home that you've lived in for 30 years
Yeah.
and you love that camellia bush
Yeah.
or the azalea bush right next to your home. And yet, if you were true to defensible space, they would be gone.
Yeah. And we're
5 to
learning things.
15.
We're learning new things all the
Yeah.
time. So, this is the time of year. Spring is a great time of year to take another look at your garden, look around your house, look at the home hardening assessment tools that are available and take
And
advantage
the
of
other
them.
county program is SoCo Adapts, and I
Yeah.
hope you have a podcast with the folks working on that.
Good
They
idea.
will come out to your home and inspect your home, and that's probably the easiest part of the emotionally wrenching decisions of removing vegetation around your property. But it's not only vegetation, it's looking at your vents and your crawl space and your
Yep.
attics, and that means you need to replace those vents. They're inexpensive, but you
Yeah.
need to figure out that you should do it.
Yeah. And also your fence lines, fences that come right into the house.
Wood fences.
They're
And people,
real risk.
people have the assurance that if you replace a wood gate with a metal gate, you're going to be safe.
Uh-uh.
Coffee Park, no. Those wood fences burned really well.
Yeah. Well, let's shift to another topic. You had an exciting event just a short time ago. You opened up a new satellite office right there in Sonoma Valley. It's called the East Sonoma County Services Center. Tell us about that.
I am so excited about this. This is something that I've been working on for over 6 years before the fires. I asked Health and Human Services to evaluate the services need in Sonoma Valley. And I knew clearly we were not providing the services where people needed it. And we had been looking around for buildings or storefronts that might serve the need as a storefront for the community. Oh, wait, we had a few fires, we had COVID, power shutdowns, and sheer workload. So we never got to complete that assessment when when we were having a discussion at the county. Where do we build the new county campus? Right where we sit or in downtown Santa Rosa? I was supportive of downtown Santa Rosa, but the rest of the board was not. So here, eventually, long past my term in office, it may arise at this location. We'll see. And the county is making other plans. But in that discussion, I have to credit Supervisor Hopkins by suggesting that the folks in her district do not come to
Yeah.
access services
Yeah.
on this campus.
Yeah,
It's
you have
too far away.
similarities. Yeah.
And it's an hour plus away. And if a tree is down or some other auto accident that would stop the highway, they're not going to come here for services. And more of our population residents in Sonoma Valley are Spanish speaking.
Yeah.
They don't have access to the computers and they don't have language skills to even try to do some research about permitting and anything that might be online. I actually have to admit, I have challenges with that as well. So when this building, the silver lining of COVID is that we at the county are doing things differently.
Yeah.
Our team for District 1 doing things differently. We don't have 5 people sitting in cubicles at this location. Mostly we work remotely from home. Sometimes we're in the county campus. Sometimes we're down in Sonoma. And so this building, owned by Gary Nelson of Nelson Staffing,
Also, yeah.
also experienced the same thing. His staff all worked remotely.
Yeah.
So the building, I soon learned, was available for purchase or lease. And I was amazingly irritating to the county general services to go ahead and purchase that building.
Yeah.
It's going to be the only building that's going to be available to meet our needs. Yes, after a year of badgering and moving things slowly through the bureaucracy, we did negotiate for the lease. and we now have services.
Yeah.
And if we have time to talk about those services,
Well,
great.
I think it's a beautiful building. I had the privilege of being there during the ribbon cutting, which was very fun. It is a. I just encourage anybody who hasn't had a chance to go take a look. But you do have a number of services. Your health services is there, and they don't always have people staffed around the clock, but you can do appointments there, so you don't have to drive all the way to Santa Rosa to set up this appointment. It is very convenient.
As I call it, we are growing into our pause.
There you go.
We have the building, we have the infrastructure, which we're rearranging, by the way, because it doesn't fill our needs. But we have WIC offices there, some mental health services, behavioral health services, eligibility workers for assistance through human services, child support services. And of course, I'm so thrilled to have a lovely office with my field representative there. So it's exciting, and I'm encouraging the county to provide more and more staffing functions down in the building, at least occasionally. So we are going to be promoting what services are there, and then just really bug the departments to get folks down there occasionally.
Well, I also want to note District 5, Supervisor Hopkins, I know both of you are really seeing aligned on this issue, but she was able to open a satellite office at the old Bank of America building in Guerneville too. So that's a wonderful opportunity for those who don't have an hour to drive to Santa Rosa to get their needs met. So let's talk about Sonoma Developmental Center. This has been going on since you were first elected supervisor, maybe when you were on the city council in Santa Rosa. I can't remember
I
how
really
much.
didn't know much about the developmental center as a council member, certainly not as a candidate for supervisor. But when I was elected as supervisor, a core group of folks invited me to join the coalition, the Sonoma Ecology Center, the Sonoma Land Trust, as well as regional parks and the Ag and Open Space. They had been meeting, and with my addition and the Parent Hospital Association, we formed a broad-based coalition, including Rebecca Hermosillo, who was the representative for Mike Thompson, to meet monthly to talk about some of the issues. And I remember vividly the former secretary, Diana Dooley, when we knew that this campus was going to be closed, she said, "Don't worry, because it'll take 5 years." And I said, 5 years? You can't plan a doghouse in 5 years, let alone get it through the approval process. But they were vulnerable. The remaining residents were hurriedly evacuated during the 2017 fires. And it was at that point that I knew how vulnerable Sonoma Valley was for any of the fires, if not fires, earthquakes, because we have faults running up against there. So, I can very generously say the residents in the valley are furious that what they have been talking about, affordable housing, housing for workforce, and workforce development opportunities, innovation, site for climate change, all of those things are so remote from the project that has been proposed. And we'll worry through that. But I am most concerned by the number of units proposed there, given its vulnerability in fires, and the fact that I suspect most of those homes are not going to be affordable to anybody in Sonoma Valley. So we have a long way to go, and we'll talk about it publicly, have some hearings down in the valley. They would actually love to have the Planning Commission have their meetings down there to discuss this. We'll see about that.
Yeah, well, there's still a lot to be decided. It is moving forward, but the amount of housing was going to be a huge issue. And as you noted, the ingress and egress at the time, especially in the time of wildfire crisis, that's a big,
narrow roads.
big concern. Yeah. Well, let's talk about another issue that you wish was moving along faster, and that happens to do with the Arnold Drive bike lane project. I know that is going to be your legacy, whether it's going to happen, right? Johanna said it yesterday they had an update on bike and pedestrian projects. But
as I said yesterday, I'm very familiar with bicycle and pedestrian projects, having served for 10 years with the city of Santa Rosa developing their master plan, and really understanding the challenges of funding projects with limited amount of funding. but it's much easier in a city to put bike lanes on a road.
Right.
And it is much harder to create bike lanes and multi-use paths on roads that are just so narrow you
Right.
cannot safely ride on the roads.
Yeah.
So we can at some point maybe talk a little bit further about my frustration in the county working in silos to construct any kind of bicycle and pedestrian projects, and the labyrinth way that you have to fund that, looking out years in the future once you even have the attention of the various departments. So it will happen. I was hoping that it would be constructed this year so that I could ride on those lanes this
Well,
year.
there will be a segment that's going to be built, right?
Not this year. They're,
Well,
they're still in right-of-way acquisition.
That's true. That's true.
And they say construction next year, but I'll wait and see.
All right. Well, I know you're a big bicyclist, so I know you. Once they build that, you will be out there. You'll be the first one on it.
Joe is actually the big bicyclist. He's out on his bicycle today, and I hang on the back of the tandem and let my engine do the work. But I'm very aware of the hazardous conditions that all cyclists have, and most people will not get on their bike because they are simply unsafe on roads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thus, we have a need for bicycle lanes as well as the multi-use paths.
Well, you've mentioned the fact that you do have these certain goals, dream projects you would like to have wrapped up, but you've also made it clear that this is your last term in office, and so you're down to your last 9 months here. We're not going to go into your legacy. We're going to do a look back session. We want to invite you to come back later on in the year.
And maybe I can report on the success of my last 3 final projects.
There you go. Everything's going to get wrapped up in the next.
But I am very excited about the election of Supervisor-elect Rebecca Hermosillo. And some people know, but many don't know, that I took her out for coffee about 3 years ago, and I said, I'm not running, and I would like you to run.
Oh, that's great.
And it took her by surprise, but it took her like almost a nanosecond to say, I could see myself doing this, and then prepared, and totally overwhelming that only one candidate entered the race against her, and she is successful.
Well, maybe that's out of respect for what a strong candidate she was and is.
Exactly.
And she did win handily in the last election, and so are you going to meet with her on occasion?
I have met with her over the past 3 years,
Have you?
and I will more frequently meet with her over the next 9 months. But she's back to working full-time for Congressman Thompson, so she doesn't have a lot of free time to haunt the county campus and talk with you and other folks, but she will.
Okay, well, we will certainly have her in when we get closer to when she takes over. But and again, we want to invite you back to talk more and what you've learned, what you remember. But before we go, tell us a little bit about yourself. We know you love gardening and being outside and bicycling. You're an outdoor enthusiast. Is there a go-to place you have when you want to get away from it all?
Mostly I've spent a lot of time the last 2 years replanting the vegetation and reimagining a defensible space, what that looks like in the various rooms that I've created. But most people know that I live adjacent to Triona-Annandale State Park, and at least one of us in the family does hiking almost daily in that park. And my husband says, that's what you're going to be doing, retirement. And so I think my goal in retirement is to start exploring the county parks and state parks that I have not had time to get and build up my strength again, because I was in a Zoom chair for 2+ years.
Yeah.
So you lose your muscle strength, your core strength, and agility. So I'm working up gradually.
Well, I think that sounds like a wonderful retirement. We were just having that conversation with Bert Whitaker, talking about exploring, making time to really love on our parks, because we have so many options here.
Exactly.
So, well, that sounds fantastic. Well, Susan, thank you so much for being here. When again, we're going to invite you back to talk more about these and other ongoing events. But for now, we want to thank you. And as a thank you, we'd like to give you one of our SoCo Chat coffee mugs.
Well, I was so jealous of Supervisor David Rabbit for having his mug. And I said, wait, no, where did you get that? Oh.
Well, you got to earn it.
And
you didn't have to answer a trivia question or anything.
Well, thank goodness you didn't ask me about baseball.
Yeah, well, you may get our next trivia question. So hang tight. And to our listeners, we also would like to give you a chance to win one of our SoCo Chat mugs. Our trivia question today is, now don't shut out if you know the answer. What is California's oldest continuously family-owned winery? So the question
I
is,
know the
what is
answer.
California's
Wait.
oldest continuously family-owned winery? And here's a hint. You can find it in Supervisor Gorin's district.
And go ahead and take that wine tour. It's fabulous.
If you know the answer, call us at 565-2242 or email us at publicaffairs, one word, at sonoma-county.org. Submit your answer today. And we will be entered into our weekly drawing, which will take place next week for one of our limited edition SoCo Chat coffee mugs. Also, if you have a comment about this segment or any other segment, or have a suggestion for a topic for a future SoCo Chat discussion, please email us at that same address, publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org, or call us at 565-2242. Thank you all, and we hope you continue to follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and of course, YouTube. Just look for SoCo Chat. We'll see you next time.
And Paul, I'd like to thank you and all of the communications team for the great work that you do.
Well, thank you.